My beloved brothers and sisters, when you begin to look around yourself with eyes of gratitude, you start realizing that the love of Allah has been surrounding you long before you ever turned to Him. Every single heartbeat within your chest is a gift. Every breath you take is a mercy that you didn't even ask for, yet it was granted. How many times do we wake up in the morning without even thinking that the one who allowed our eyes to open is the same one who kept us safe through the night? When you begin to recognize this, something shifts inside you. Love is born not out of words alone, but out of the realization that you are constantly being cared for. And when you see that no one else in your life could give you the countless blessings that Allah has already surrounded you with, your heart cannot help but soften and move towards it. The truth is, most of us live in a cycle of forgetfulness. We walk, we talk, we eat, we drink, but how often do we stop and ask, who is the source of all of this? That food on your plate was not placed there by chance. The water you drink traveled through a system created by Allah Himself so it could quench your thirst. The roof above your head, the clothes that cover your body, the sound of your loved ones' voices, all of these are daily reminders of Allah's mercy. But our hearts often miss them because we are too busy chasing what we don't have, forgetting to love the one who has already given us more than we deserve. If only we paused and truly reflected, we would see that our entire existence is surrounded by blessings that never stop flowing, even when we are ungrateful. Have you ever thought about how fragile you really are? A small cut, a drop in blood pressure, a sudden illness, these are enough to shake your entire world. Yet who is the one holding you together every single moment? Who is the one protecting you from accidents you never even saw coming? Who is the one who saves you from dangers you weren't even aware of? How many times have you traveled on the road not realizing that had Allah willed, a disaster could have struck, yet He shielded you? The number of times Allah has protected you is uncountable, but the heart only realizes it when it starts to look at life through the lens of gratitude. And that gratitude leads to love, because you cannot truly love someone without recognizing how much they have done for you. Think about your body. Your eyes see, your ears hear, your tongue speaks, your hands move, your legs carry you. Each of these is a blessing you did nothing to earn. There are people in the world who would give away everything they own just to see with their eyes, or walk with their legs, or hear the voices of their loved ones. Yet here you are, given these gifts daily without even asking. If you tried to count the blessings of Allah, you could never finish. That realization alone is enough to make the heart fall in love with Allah, because He gives without limits, without conditions, and without asking for anything in return except that you turn to Him. But sometimes, blessings are not only in what is given, but also in what is taken away. Perhaps you lost something in your life, a job, a friend, an opportunity, and at the time you questioned, why me? Yet later you saw how that loss saved you from a greater pain or brought you closer to Allah in a way comfort never could. This too is mercy. Allah's blessings are not always wrapped in things we desire. Sometimes they come disguised as difficulties that carry lessons, growth, and purification. When your heart begins to see that even the hardships are part of Allah's love for you, it becomes easier to surrender and trust Him. And that trust deepens the love, because you know He is looking out for you in ways you cannot even comprehend. Imagine the moments in your life when you felt broken, when you thought you could not carry on, when the weight of the world pressed down so heavily that you felt crushed. And yet somehow you made it through. Who gave you the strength? Who whispered hope into your heart when you thought there was none left? Who healed wounds that no one else even saw? That was Allah. The same Lord who says He is closer to you than your jugular vein. When you truly reflect on these moments, your heart recognizes that no one has loved you more than Allah. People may leave, people may hurt you, people may forget you, but Allah never abandons you. His mercy follows you everywhere, even into the darkest corners of your life. And then beyond the blessings of this world, think about the gift of guidance. There are millions who live without faith, without knowing their Creator, without having a manual for their lives. Yet Allah chose you to know Him, to call upon Him, to read His words in the Qur'an. This alone is a blessing that should make you fall on your knees in gratitude. Out of billions of people, He guided your heart to Him. That is not by chance. That is pure love. And if the heart cannot recognize that, then it is asleep. But once the heart awakens to it, there is nothing sweeter than realizing that the Lord of the worlds personally chose you to be from among those who know Him. This is where the relationship begins to shift. When you realize that your entire life is painted with Allah's mercy, you stop seeing worship as a burden and start seeing it as an expression of love. You don't pray because you have to. You pray because you cannot ignore the one who has given you everything. You don't read the Qur'an because it's an obligation. You read it because you long to hear the words of the one who loves you most. You don't give charity because you're forced. You give because you've already been given more than you can ever repay. Worship becomes love in action. And when worship becomes love, it transforms your entire experience of faith. Even the smallest things remind you of Allah's care. The coolness of the rain, the warmth of the sun, the beauty of a sunset, the laughter of a child. Each one is a whisper from Allah saying, I am here, I am providing, I am loving you. How could the heart not fall in love with such a Lord? How could the soul not long to be closer to the one who never stops giving? When you reflect on what it truly means to love Allah and His book, you come to realize that love is not just about emotions. It is not just about words or feelings that remain in the heart. Love shows itself in action. Imagine someone who claims to love their parents but never listens to them, never respects them, never follows their advice. Would you believe in their love? The same is true with our relationship with Allah and the Qur'an. It is easy to say, I love Allah, I love the Qur'an, but the real question is, does your life reflect that love? Because the Qur'an was not sent down only to be recited with beautiful voices or to be placed on a shelf. It was sent to guide every step of our lives. And when you start living by its teachings, that is when your heart begins to taste the sweetness of faith. Because you are no longer just admiring the light, you are walking in it. Every verse of the Qur'an is a gift, and every command is not a burden but a doorway to peace. Allah did not give us rules to restrict us, He gave us guidance to protect us. Think about a loving parent who tells their child, don't touch the fire, don't cross the road without looking, don't eat what will harm you. The child might think, why so many rules? But the parent knows the reality. The rules are for the child's safety, not to make life harder. In the same way, when Allah tells us what is halal and what is haram, when He guides us towards prayer, honesty, kindness, and away from arrogance, envy, and greed, it is not to restrict us, but to protect our hearts and souls. When you see the Quran in this light, you begin to love its teachings because you realize every verse is a form of mercy. But to live by the Quran means we have to go beyond recitation. Reciting the Quran brings immense reward, yes, but if the words do not enter our lives, then what have we really gained? The Quran calls itself a light. What good is light if you never use it to see your way? There are people who can recite beautifully, who know the verses by heart, but their actions contradict the very message they recite. And then there are others who may not recite perfectly, but they live every day trying to embody the values of the Quran. Speaking kindly, forgiving others, being generous, lowering their gaze, being just. Which of these reflects real love? Of course, it is the one who lives by the message, even if their recitation is weak. That is the true reflection of love. One of the greatest signs that a person has fallen in love with Allah and His book is that the Quran is not just something they read in prayer, but something they carry into their daily choices. For example, when anger rises, the words of the Quran remind them that Allah loves those who restrain their anger and forgive people. When temptation comes, the Quran whispers to their heart, do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. When despair creeps in, the Quran gives them hope. Do not despair of the mercy of Allah. These moments show us whether the Quran lives in our hearts or only on our tongues. Living by the Quran also means you trust it more than you trust your own desires. The world will tell you, follow your heart, do what feels good, chase your dreams no matter what. But the Quran teaches you to follow the truth even when it is hard, to sacrifice a little comfort for eternal peace, to prefer the love of Allah over the approval of people. And that is not always easy. Sometimes your heart wants one thing, but the Quran guides you towards another. In those moments, your choice shows whether you truly love Allah. Because real love is proven when you are willing to put Allah's word above your own desires. Have you ever noticed how the Quran doesn't just talk about rituals, but about character, about how you treat people? That is because living by the Quran means living with integrity. It means being honest in business, even if you could easily cheat. It means lowering your gaze when no one is watching because Allah is watching. It means giving charity quietly, not to show off, but because the Quran tells us Allah loves those who spend in His path. It means forgiving someone who wronged you, even if your ego screams for revenge, because the Quran says forgiveness is better. Each of these small choices is a reflection of love. It is as if with every action you are saying, Ya Allah, I choose you over myself. And that is the essence of falling in love with Him. Sometimes living by the Quran requires courage, because when you follow the Quran sincerely, you may be mocked, misunderstood, or even opposed. Society might tell you that modesty is outdated, that honesty doesn't pay, that forgiveness makes you weak, that prayer wastes time. But the Quran teaches you that what is with Allah is better and everlasting. When you choose the Quran over the noise of the world, you prove your love not just with words, but with sacrifice. And that sacrifice is not a loss, it is an investment in eternity. Those who lived by the Quran in this world will walk in its light on the day of judgment, when all other lights are extinguished. You see, the Quran is not just a book, it is a mirror. When you look into it, you see yourself. The verses about hypocrisy remind you to check your sincerity. The verses about gratitude remind you not to take life for granted. The verses about patience remind you that hardship is part of the journey. And the verses about paradise remind you that this world is not your home. Every time you read, it is Allah speaking directly to you, guiding you, teaching you, shaping you. But the transformation only happens if you allow those words to enter your life. A mirror is useless if you never look into it, and the Quran is useless if you never live by it. When you begin to embody the Quran, something changes within you. Your heart softens, your mind clears, your purpose becomes strong. You stop chasing temporary pleasures and start chasing eternal joy. You stop living for people and start living for Allah. And that shift brings a peace that cannot be found anywhere else. People spend their lives searching for happiness in wealth, status, and relationships. But those who live by the Quran find happiness in something greater, in pleasing the one who created happiness itself.